Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Talk Sports Show with Alec Pecano on Monday, December 12th. Today's show, I will be going over a lot. My fantasy football, no, my latest mock draft, college basketball rankings, conference previews, not previews, conference teams I think can win their college basketball conference college basketball top 25, more bowl games to watch, and a look ahead at maybe some upset picks for college basketball this week. But let's get started with the mock draft. Share screen here. So as you can see, the Bears still have number one. And with the number one pick, I really think Justin Fields is solidifying himself as that franchise QB for the Bears. So I'm going to have them taking offensive lineman Alu Fashanu out of Penn State because they do have an offensive line need. Or no, they don't. So actually, we're going to pivot, and I'm going to have them take another position I think they need, and that would be D lineman. That's too early to take Drazon Newton. So I think they're going to take. I think they go Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. And we don't know yet whether Marvin Harrison is going to declare for the draft. He could declare for the draft, or he could go back to Ohio State. If he declares, I think he's going in the top 5. And right here, I have him going number 1. My number 2 pick in the draft, and this mock draft, is the New England Patriots. And the Patriots do need a quarterback. And I have them taking, and I think this guy's going to fit perfect in New England. Drake May out of North Carolina. Or they could take a tackle here and take Olu Fashanu. But I think I like the quarterback. And actually, I'm going to take Caleb Williams. I'm going to change that pick. I think Caleb Williams is a better fit in New England right now than Drake May. At number 3, the Cardinals obviously don't need a quarterback. They need wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, and linebacker, and corner. But I have them taking offensive lineman Joe Alt from Notre Dame. You got Paris Johnson Jr. on one side of the offensive line, and he's done relatively well. So I think on the other side, you take Joe Alt, who is the consensus number 1 offensive tackle in this draft class. And he's the number 1 consensus on everybody's big board for offensive linemen, including mine, which my big board will be going out. My top 50 prospects will be going out in the next couple weeks. So Joe Alt will be the number 3 pick. Commanders at number 4. This is where you get your run of offensive linemen. The Commanders need an offensive lineman to protect Sam Howell. And I think they get it here with offensive tackle Alu Fashanu out of Penn State. Like I said, they need somebody. They need to start building up that offensive line to get some help to protect Sam Howell, who is the most sacked quarterback this year. And I think unless they spend money on offensive line and free agency, I think Alu Fashanu is the perfect fit along that offensive line for the Commanders. At number 5, the Bears. They took Marvin Harrison, number 1. Now they will get an offensive lineman. It's not going to be an interior O lineman. What are we at? 5. Actually, I have them taking my CB1, which my CB1, like I told you, it's going to flip. It's either going to be Wiggins or Kool-Aid McKinstry. And I think this might be a little too high for Kool-Aid McKinstry, but I have the Bears taking Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. And the reason I have them taking Kool-Aid McKinstry is they need help. They need young, skilled players on defense in the secondary, and I believe Kool-Aid McKinstry is the perfect fit there for the Bears. Now at number 6, I have a wide receiver coming off the board. And no, it is not. It's not Rama Dunze yet. I have the Jets taking Malik Neighbors at number 6 out of LSU. And here's my theory. They need another wide receiver to pair with Garrett Wilson. Allen Lazard's not it. Randall Cobb's not it. The only reason they were brought into New York is to be with Aaron Rodgers. So, and I think Rodgers is going to say, I want a young, skilled receiver like Garrett Wilson. So, they will draft a wide receiver in Malik Neighbors at number 6. The Giants at number 7. They need a lot of everything. They need quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, DB. But I have them taking quarterback Drake May out of North Carolina. And here's my theory on this. I think Drake May is going to go in the top 10. He's not going to the Jets because the Jets have Rodgers. Unless they think that Rodgers is done after next year, then they might take a quarterback. But if Rodgers is coming back for more than for at least 2 more years, then they'll take a wide receiver. But the Giants here, I like Drake May because he can sit behind Daniel Jones for 1 year and learn the offense. And the Giants can get out of Daniel Jones' contract after next season. So Drake May here is the pick from North Carolina. The Titans at number 8. Now, Don't get me wrong. They need wide receiver. And they also need offensive line. And this is where I think Talicia Fawanga goes from Oregon State. Because the Titans, they need offensive line to protect their young quarterback in Will Levis. So I think they invest in an offensive lineman here and take Tyrese Fawanga out of Oregon State. At number 9, the Saints, they need defensive line and offensive tackle. Now, you might say this is a little too early to take the defensive lineman. I'm going to mock to them. But no, he's the number 9 ranked defensive lineman. And it is Drazon. I like this pick for the Saints. Drazon Newton, defensive lineman, Illinois. And the reason I have Drazon Newton going here is I think the Saints, because Cam Jordan's not getting any younger. Carl Granderson's had a really good season, but they need young talent there. And maybe Brian Bresee, who they drafted this past draft, can be really good. But they need to start building up a younger defensive line. And I think Drazon Newton fits perfect in that scheme. At number 10, the Buccaneers. Quarterback, tight end, guard, center, edge, linebacker, corner. Now, normally here, I'd have the Bucs take it a quarterback. But we don't know whether Mike Evans is coming back or whether Evans is coming back, because the Glazers are talking about they want to, and this is one of my favorite teams that I watch all the time. So we don't know if Mike Evans is coming back, because the Glazers are talking about they want to pay Baker Mayfield. So if Mike Evans doesn't come back, you got to take a receiver, and it's not going to be Rome Odunze out of Washington. It'll be Keon Coleman out of Florida State. And yeah, you might say this is a little bit of a reach, but I like Keon Coleman here for the Buccaneers. At number 11, the Raiders. This is where Bo Nix comes off the board. Now, you may say in a realm of possibilities, why would Bo Nix go off the board here? The Raiders have a quarterback. They have Aiden O'Connell. I'm sorry to break it to you. Aiden O'Connell is not, he's good, but he's not a franchise QB. So I have them taking, and I think Bo Nix, whoever the head coach is going to be, whether it's Antonio Pierce or whether they hire somebody else, maybe Jim Harbaugh. Okay, J.J. McCarthy, no. Bo Nix is the pick here. And like I said, they need their franchise quarterback. And I think Bo Nix can be their franchise. Now, the Chargers, they see Brock Bowers sitting here. Brock Bowers is supposed to go in the top 5. They need running back, wide receiver, tight end, defensive line, linebacker, and corner. Now, they could go corner here and go Nate Wiggins. But like I said, how are you going to let Brock Bowers fall past this point? I think Brock Bowers would be the perfect addition here in the draft for the Chargers because Herbert's the quarterback. You need to give him all the weapons you can. And I think Brock Bowers is the best tight end in this class overall. And I think he would do wonders in that Chargers offense. So Brock Bowers is a pick. The Broncos at 13. Quarterback, wide receiver, corner, edge, and offensive line. Now, the Latu is here. And I don't think the Broncos are going to take a quarterback because Russell Wilson's still under contract. So I have them taking Latu out of UCLA. Now, the reason he's fallen this far is because of his medical. He had to retire from football for a little while because of a neck injury. But now he's back and he's been really productive. So I like the Broncos here to take the Latu edge out of UCLA. Now the Bills, they need wide receiver, they need offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, and DB. Now, one would tell you, why is Rome Odunze still on the board? That is the exact kind of wide receiver the Bills need. A big body that can stretch the field, and I think Rome Odunze would fit perfectly in a Joe Brady-led offense, who is the offensive coordinator right now, and with Josh Allen. I think that would be, just imagine a wide receiver room of Stephon Diggs, Rome Odunze, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. That's lethal. That's a deadly combination. All that wide receiver and tight end room. Rome Odunze, welcome to Buffalo. Seattle at 15. They took an offensive lineman last year. I have them taking an offensive lineman here. And it will be J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Now, they've got one of their tackle and guards spots filled out for the future. And Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. Now, I think you need to get the bookend tackle on the other side filled. And that would be J.C. Latham out of Alabama. And then all you need is another guard and a center. And then your offensive line is set for years to come. So that's why I like the pick here of J.C. Latham out of Alabama. At number 16, the Rams. They need secondary help. And I'm going to give them I'm not going to give them an lineman. I'm going to give them Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. They need secondary help, and they need somebody that's young that can develop into being a number one corner, and I think Nate Wiggins can do that perfect. He is my CB number 2 in the draft. The Bengals at number 17. They missed out on Brock Bowers, so I'm going to give them an offensive lineman too. And I think taking Amarius Mims is another guy that's fallen. He was probably going to go top 10 if he was healthy. But he's fallen here And this is where you might see a run on offensive line. These next two picks with the Bengals and the Steelers. And I think Amarius Mims to the Bengals just makes a lot of sense. Now the Steelers. They need offensive line help too. And I have them taking offensive lineman Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. Now, you may think I'm crazy here, but there is offensive linemen that their draft stock could boost up because they've been playing well. Actually, flip that. We're going to take Graham Barton out of Duke. Barton's a tackle and a guard, but I think he'll play tackle for the up. He'll play guard or tackle for the Steelers. And I like this pick for the Steelers, even though they need DB help. Actually, you know what? I'm not giving them an offensive line. I think they're going to address the offensive line at free agency. I have them taking Kalen King out of Penn State to reform that dynamic duo that was together at Penn State, and Kalen King and Joey Porter Jr. I like this pick for the Steelers. Falcons. Now, they do need wide receiver, but again, I think they address that later on in the second round of the draft or in free agency. I have them taking a cornerback here. And that would be Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. They need DB help. I know wide receiver and quarterback are their top two needs. Edge rusher is third. But I think they address 2 out of the 3 of those in free agency. So they take Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. Packers. This is where Cooper DeJean comes off the board. I think the Packers need young, physical, versatile secondary help. And I think Cooper DeJean is perfect for that. So I have them taking Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. The Vikings at number 21. Quarterback, running back, guard, center, D-line, linebacker, defensive back. Now, normally here, I think Kirk Cousins comes back for one more season. And so, I have the Vikings taking Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle out of Arizona. Now, right now, his average draft position is 44. But there's going to be guys that shoot up the draft boards and fall down. And I think he's one of the guys that's going to be a rankings riser in the draft. So I like him at this spot in the first round. Jordan Morgan to the Vikings at 21. Now the Cardinals. We have to go all the way back to number 2. Where they took Joe Alt. So here at number 22, Is there any good wide receivers out? Now, you could say Emeka Ibuka, but the issue with that is we don't know if Ibuka has not declared for the draft yet because he's waiting on what Marvin Harrison's decision. So I do have the Cardinals taking a wide receiver though. It is not Emeka Ibuka. It is Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. I think this is the perfect fit for the Cardinals. Or they could take an offensive lineman like actually I think they're going to take offensive lineman Graham Barton out of Duke. Because they need to get that offensive line figured out. And I think they can wait on wide receiver until the second round. So they double up on offensive linemen and they take Graham Barton out of Duke. $20 into this. Here's the run on offensive lineman. With the 23rd pick, I have the Colts taking offensive lineman Troy Fatanu out of Washington. The Colts need to get younger on the offensive line. They've got a lot of guys that are like Quentin Nelson's good, so he can stay around, but you need to get younger on the offensive line. And I think getting Troy Fatanu is the perfect pick for the Colts. Texans at number 24 are going to take edge They take Jared Verse out of Florida State. They need to keep building up that defensive line, and I think they do it here by drafting Jared Verse. Now, here's the run on defensive linemen, because I have the Chiefs taking Dallas Turner out of Alabama. And here's my explanation as to why I think this is a good pick. They need guys that can rush the passer. Chris Jones isn't getting any younger. George Karlaftis looks like he could be a really good pick, really good player for the Chiefs. But they need somebody on the other side once Chris Jones does leave or retire. And I think Dallas Turner is the perfect pick here. Now, the Jags. I have them going multiple ways here. I see Chop Robinson still on the board, and they need edge, but they also need defensive back. And now you got Josh Newton, Kamari Lassiter, TJ Tampa, Quinyon Mitchell. I have the Jags taking defensive back Denzel Burke out of the Ohio State University. And here's my explanation. They need young guys that are physical. And Denzel Burke, if you watch his tape, he's a very physical defensive back. If you looked at last year, at Ohio State, he very rarely got targeted because the other teams knew that it was either going to be an interception or a pass breakup. So they chose to go after the DB on the other side of the field. So I think Denzel Burke fits here with Jacksonville. The Cowboys. I have them taking a Cowboys defensive lineman. I have them taking a edge rusher here, and it'll be Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Now, Michael Parsons, really good pass rusher, but you need somebody to help you out on the other side. So Michael Parsons doesn't have to take all the double teams. And I think Chop Robinson is that perfect guy to go on the other side, to be a bookend, have Michael Parsons be on one side of the defensive line, and have Chop Robinson be on the other. Lions. Guard, center, D-line, DB. Is there any other offensive lineman I can see going in the first round? If it's a line, it's interior or lineman, we just need offensive tackle. You know what? Yes, I can. Patrick Paul out of Houston. Now, the Lions don't necessarily need, they need offensive line. They need a guard. And I think you can move Patrick Paul to guard easily. So, I like this pick for the Lions. Now, another team that needs offensive line is the 49ers. And I think they go offensive lineman. Offensive lineman Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. Now, Tyler Guyton doesn't necessarily have to start right off the bat because you still got Trent Williams. You could plug him in at guard or have him learn behind Trent Williams. So I like the pick of Tyler Guyton here. Ravens. They need wide receiver, defensive line, and corner. Now, like I said a minute ago, I don't know if Emeka Egbuka is going to go in the draft this year. He might go back to Ohio State if Marvin Harrison doesn't. And I think it's vice versa. If Marvin Harrison doesn't go back to Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka does, and Emeka Egbuka is the number one wide receiver. So that is why Egbuka is still on the board here. Even though if he does go to the draft, he will go in the first round probably. But I have the Ravens taking Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. And now here's why I think you've only got Odell's on a 1-year deal. Nelson Aguilar's on a 1-year deal. So they need another wide receiver to put in that wide receiver room with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. And I think Adonai Mitchell is perfect for that. And the Dolphins, they need offensive line up too. They take Kingsley Suamatia out of BYU. BYU fans, if I said his last name wrong, please let me know. But it's Kingsley Suamatia out of BYU that is going to the Dolphins. They need help on the offensive line. They do have Austin Jackson, but they still do need offensive line. And I think they take Kingsley here. And the Eagles at number 32 take linebacker Adrian Cooper out of Texas A&M. Barrett Carter has already came out and said he's going back to Clemson. That would have been my pick here for the Eagles. Would have been Barrett Carter. But I like Adrian Cooper here out of A&M. Because for the said fact that it's a lot easier for them to draft him and put him in there at linebacker. And now we get to the second. We get to the biggest part of the show. And that is, here is my conference ace, my conference, you're going to get this every Monday going forward, except for December 25th, which is Christmas, which I don't ever stream on Christmas. I don't stream on YouTube on holidays. So you will not see me on Christmas or New Year's. But other than that, we stream. And every week, you're going to get a different 3 set of conferences. For teams trending up and trending down. You get 4 teams trending up, 3 trending down. And here we go. We're going to start with the Atlantic Sun. My 4 teams trending up in the Atlantic Sun Conference. Number 1, Kennesaw State. I did not see this coming. They lost Amir Abdul-Rahim to USF, which you're going to see USF in a little bit. But I thought Kennesaw State was going to fall off and not be good, not be able to hold stead where they were. Now, I'm surprised that they're 7-3 so far on the season. Number 2, Queens. See, going into last year, I didn't know much about Queens. Now I do. They are a really good basketball team. And I think they've got a chance to do special things. Now, Lipscomb's at number 3. Lipscomb is that team that just hangs around. They tend to trend up, but they can also trend down and be bad. But I see good things for Lipscomb, Queens, Kennesaw State, and team number 4, North Florida. Very young team. And, of course, my alma mater, where I went to college. But they're trending up because I like the young guy, the underclassmen that are getting to play. And you get to see, if you put on a North Florida basketball game, watch for Chaz Lanier. He has stepped up into a bigger role this year for North Florida with all the guys that either graduated and left or transferred. He has stepped up into a bigger role. Trending down, FGCU, Central Arkansas, Eastern Kentucky. Teams I think can win the ASUN regular season title. Kennesaw State, Stetson, North Florida, Jacksonville. Kennesaw State won it last year, and I think they can do it again this year in their final year in the ASUN. Stetson, number 2. Stetson, they're like that team that you think, oh, you've beaten them twice. They're not going to win the ASUN regular season. They're not going to win the regular season title. Maybe they do. North Florida, number 3, and JU, number 4. It's the same 4 teams for the conference tourney. And the conference tourney is a whole different story. When and it's survive and advance, it's basically going 1-0. And I think these teams have the people to do that, the players to do that. AAC. So trending up right now in the AAC, UTSA, FAU, East Carolina, South Florida. Now, UTSA, again, they were a team I didn't really, I knew about them in football, but they're actually half decent in basketball too. And I think they could do big things in the AAC this year. Number 2, FAU. Number 3, East Carolina. And number 4, South Florida. South Florida, yes, I understand they're 3-4, but they just beat Florida State, a really good Power 5 school. And I understand what y'all are going to say is they should be trending down because they have 4 losses. They're under a new regime with Amir Abdul-Rahim, who came over from Kennesaw State. Now, on the other side, trending down in the AAC, Rice, Temple, UAB. Now, and it's kind of the same order for the regular season title for AAC, FAU, SMU, Memphis, South Florida. Now, FAU, I just talked about. They made a run in the March Madness last year to the Final Four. Do I think they can do it again? Yes. I think they can, and I think they can win a regular season AAC title. SMU, this is their final year in the American for every sport. I think they can win the AAC regular season title because of their guard play. Memphis is the same thing. South Florida, experience. Casey Jennings, Chris Youngblood, Jose Placer. 3 guys I just named. All 3 came over from the A side. 2 from Kennesaw State with Amir Abdul-Rahim, and Jose from UNF. And Jose, keep your eyes on Jose Placer. He is a really good 3-point shooter. And again, it's same except for UTSA. I think UTSA has a good chance to win the AAC tournament. Now, the Big Ten. And yes, you're going to see different teams on here trending up and trending down. Obviously, the ones trending up, Purdue, Indiana, Ohio State, Nebraska. And the surprise on here is Nebraska. 7-2 in basketball so far to start the season. I have been really surprised with Nebraska. Now let's get over to the regular season. Teams I think can win the Big Ten regular season title. Number 1, Purdue. And this one, there's one obvious reason I say Purdue, and that is because of Zach Edey, one of the best players in the country. Number 2, Indiana. Really good guards. 3, Ohio State. Guards, and they have a lot of depth this year, which is what they didn't have last year. And number 4, Northwestern. Now, everybody on here is the same for the winning the Big Ten tournament except Nebraska. And I'll explain why for Nebraska. I think Nebraska could win the Big Ten tournament for some odd reason. I just think there's a chance they do. And now, here's my first batch of top 25 rankings for college basketball. At number 25, North Florida. And how I do my college basketball rankings the same way as I did my college football, based on how the teams play. So, number 25, like I said, North Florida. I've loved how they've been playing to start the season. Number 24, James Madison. James Madison's another team that's been playing really well to start the college basketball season. They beat Michigan State to start the year, and they are, I believe, undefeated in basketball. Number 23, Tulane. Tulane, group of 5 school, and I like how they've been playing. Indiana, I just talked about them a minute ago. You're going to see a few Big Ten teams in these rankings. Indiana's at 22. And no surprise that they're ranked. Number 21, Northwestern. Northwestern, I've been really surprised how they've played so far early in the year. I didn't know that Northwestern had a half decent basketball team until I looked at their record. And hence the reason they're ranked. Liberty at number 20. Yes, we knew about Liberty football, but I knew about Liberty basketball because we played them. North Florida, we played them twice a year when they were in the A-Sun. And they were always good. And they're doing really good things in Conference USA now. And I like Liberty at number 20 right now. Number 19, Duke. Now, like my college football rankings, these rankings constantly change. Constantly change every week. So, Duke's at 19 right now. Princeton is at 18. Ivy League school, first time ranked in their school history, and first time they're ranked in my rankings. And I really like Princeton. Number 17, Marquette. Marquette could be higher, but I need to see more consistent play from Marquette. Number 16, Kentucky. John Calipari's got the Kentucky Wildcats playing really well, and I like Kentucky a lot. Number 15, Washington State. This is probably, you're like, huh? Washington State? Probably the last team you would expect to see in the rankings. Number 14, BYU. They were undefeated. They've lost one game. So when I do this next week, BYU is probably going to be moved down. Number 13, Ohio State. Self-explanatory. Guard play has been really good so far. Bruce Thornton, Roddy Gale, Zed Key. And Zed Key looks like the second best player in the Big Ten. Number 12, Texas. Number 11, Creighton. Number 10, Wisconsin. Number 9, Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, I could have flipped them with FAU, but Tennessee, I need to see more consistency from them. Number 8, Florida Atlantic, or as I put them in here, FAU. I just talked about them in the AAC. Now here they are in my rankings at number 8. I like them a lot. Gonzaga's at number 7. Gonzaga doesn't really need I'll give you a little brief 2-second talk on Gonzaga. Gonzaga is really good. Baylor's at number 6. UConn at 5. Purdue at 4. Purdue, the reason they're not at 3, I love Zach Edey. He's one of my favorite players in college basketball. But they don't really have the scoring around him. And I need to see if they can have somebody else step up if Edey has an off night. Number 3, Calvin Sampson in Houston. I love Houston. Houston's one of the best Big 12 teams. Number 2, Kansas. Another Big 12 team. Bill Self is one of the best coaches in college basketball. And number 1, Arizona. And this Arizona is kind of obvious. Now, here's the other thing we're going to do. Is we're going to go in And I'm going to give you some college basketball games to watch this week. Starting with on, is it Tuesday? Yeah, tomorrow night. Tennessee and Georgia Southern. Tennessee, number 9 in my rankings. They play Georgia Southern tomorrow night. And I think that's going to be a really good game. And I like Tennessee to win that game. And then you got Hofstra and Duke. Duke is another team in our rankings. Cincinnati and Bryant. I think Cincinnati's another team that we need to watch out for in my rankings in a couple, maybe next week. But I think Cincinnati easily beats Bryant. Bryant has won some games this year, but I don't think Bryant's very good. UT Martin and NC State. I think, here's my first upset. I think UT Martin upsets North Carolina State. In South Florida, I think they beat Arkansas Pine Bluff. And that's it for that. Now let's get to the last part of the video. So here's some bowl games, part 2 to watch. The Myrtle Beach Bowl, Ohio and Georgia Southern. I like Ohio 35-21 in this game. I think Ohio. Now, people are going to say this game's going to be boring. I don't see it. I think Ohio wins a competitive game. And like I said, I think the score is 35-21. Number 2, the LA Bowl, UCLA, Boise State. I don't think UCLA cares about playing in a bowl game. And so I think Boise State comes out and beats them 35-28. The First Responders Bowl, Texas State and Rice. Texas State wins 35-21. The Liberty Bowl, Iowa State, Memphis. Now, I was going back and forth on this one. I was having, I wouldn't say problems, but I was having technical issues picking somebody in this game. And so I think Memphis ends up winning. Iowa State ends up winning this game 45-35. And then my upsets, Ohio to upset Georgia Southern in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, Boise State to upset UCLA in the LA Bowl, and Georgia Tech to upset UCF. And then here are my top 10 bowl games to watch. Number 10, Kansas UNLV, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Now, this, I rank them 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. I'm not saying this Kansas UNLV Guaranteed Rate Bowl is going to be the worst, but I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be very competitive. A&M Oklahoma State, the Texas Bowl, is at number 9. I think Texas A&M beats the brakes off of Oklahoma State here and the Texas Bowl. So that is why it's at number 9. Number 8, Penn State Ole Miss Peach Bowl, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Now, I could have put this higher, but Penn State's going to have a lot of guys opt out that are going to the draft, And same with Mississippi State. Same with Ole Miss, correction. I still think it's going to be a decently good game. I don't think, though, that there's going to be a lot of scoring. Number 7, the Fiesta Bowl, Liberty and Oregon. I'm sorry, Liberty fans. I think you got screwed. Oregon's ticked off that they lost to Washington twice and didn't make the playoff. So I think they're going to take their pent-up frustration out on Liberty. And this is going to be a blowout. That's where it's at number 7. Number 6. And this one I'm going to explain. There's going to be a lot of... It's the Holiday Bowl. USC and Louisville. I think there's going to be a lot of opt-outs in this game. So therefore, I don't think it's going to be a very competitive game. The New Mexico Bowl between Fresno State and New Mexico State is next at number 5. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the bowl games that I think will be competitive. And I think this one's going to be very competitive. I think there's going to be somewhat a lot of scoring. So if you're betting on New Mexico State, Fresno State, I would take the over. At number 4, Alabama, Michigan, CFP Rose Bowl. This, I think, is going to be a very, 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 it's going to be a very good game. But I think Alabama's going to win. And that's nothing against Michigan. I know I talk bad about Michigan a lot. I don't think they stand a chance against Bama. And have had it in the comments. Debate all you want with me on whether you think Michigan's going to win or Alabama. I'd like to see in the comment section at least 5 people comment who they think is going to win Alabama, Michigan. Number 3, the Orange Bowl between Florida State and Georgia. Now, I've been hearing conflicting reports that they're talking about boycotting the Orange Bowl. Florida State is, because they're ticked off that they got left out of the playoff. I think they still play. And somehow, I think Florida State wins. Number 2, Missouri, Ohio State, Cotton Bowl. This is the ideal matchup in a bowl game for Ohio State, Missouri. I think Ohio State and Missouri play a heck of a game. And I like Ohio State to win and upset Missouri, because if you haven't heard, Missouri is favored. Because Ohio State's had a bunch of guys jump in the portal. Kyle McCord, Julian Fleming, Evan Pryor, a bunch of guys on defense. So I still like Ohio State. And number 1, Washington and Texas. This game, Washington, Texas, CFP the Sugar Bowl for the college football playoff. I like Texas here. I think we're going to get a rematch in the national championship. Alabama and Texas. And I think Texas ends up winning the national championship. And ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for today's show. Thank you for coming out and watching. I will be back tonight at 10 o'clock for off-season number 1 of Falcons franchise. And I think we have a winner for the wide receiver we are going to sign. It'll be Michael Pittman. And I offer memberships. I highly recommend buying a membership. And same with merch. But that'll do it for me. I will see you tonight at 10 o'clock. And just a little scheduling note before I sign off. My schedule is going to go back to what it used to be. Monday through Friday, streaming. on YouTube. Nothing on Saturday or Sunday. Unless there's like a WWE pay-per-view and I feel like streaming it. If there is, then I might show it. Then I might do a live reaction to it. But other than that, Monday through Friday will be my streaming for YouTube. And behind the scenes, I am working on getting a guest for the show. So keep a watch on the community polls, and you will see who I interview. But that'll do it for me today. I will see y'all tonight. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye now.